Hello everyone and welcome back, and in today's video we're going to be talking about a potential formation change for Milan. This is quite surprising considering we're so... Well, I mean, I'm very fixated on the 4-2-3-1 formation that we currently apply. I don't really see the need to deviate from it, but I do understand the necessity that we should have a plan B in case there are certain oppositions that are quite tricky to play against with deep defenses and whatnot, or say something's not clicking inside a game. We do need a backup plan when it comes to it. But yeah, we're talking about another formation today, which has been sort of speculated about, rumoured about. Obviously, we're seeing it somewhat in preseason friendlies, and that is the 4-4-2 formation. It's not something that a lot of people are crying out for because... I guess a lot of us in the modern day age of football that we want to sort of go for formations that have like a back three, or utilise our good centre backs that we have at the back, and maybe like a 3-5-2 formation or a 3-4-3. But so this is a bit disappointing, I think, to some fans, and I think it kind of brings us back to like sort of prehistoric football, back into the 90s, the early 2000s, where a lot of teams applied the 4-4-2 formation, and I'll be sort of going backwards with it. I'm going to give you my thoughts on what I think of potentially adapting this formation, and the reasons why that Pioli might be even considering it. So looking back at Stefano Pioli's history of being a Milan coach, when he first took over the reins of head coach, the team was obviously in disarray. We were playing a 4-3-3 formation. Obviously we were running off the failed 4-3-1-2 that Gianpaolo was trying to run out. So Pioli came in and kept the 4-3-3 going. Obviously saw there were a lot of flaws with it because the personnel we had. And eventually, as Zlatan Ibrahimovic came into the squad in January 2020, he went for the move to a 4-4-2 formation. And the first time this was played was on the 11th of January 2020 against Cagliari, and we came away from that game with a win, a good result. And there were reasons why that Pioli could see that there was, strengths for adapting this formation. It was needed at the time. It sort of added a sort of layer of protection to the defence, and also allowing us to make the most out of players like Rafael Leao, putting him very close to Zlatan Ibrahimovic up top, drifting players like Hakan Çalhanoğlu or Giacomo Bonaventura at the time at left winger position, obviously playing players like Samuel Castillejo at right winger. Those are players that we couldn't quite rely upon being natural wingers, and also at the same time we made the most out of players like Benacer and Kessie in the middle of the park. It stopped us using a middle three formation and sort of trying to utilise Kessie as a box-to-box midfielder, which he isn't, and quite honestly. So yeah, running off that, the first time Pioli used that formation back in early 2020, he slowly adapted things. It wasn't for a long time until we changed things into a more defensive 4-5-1 formation. We look at the derby loss that we had against Inter Milan, the 4-2 loss. Things were going quite strong in that first half when Ibra scored, I believe it was 2 goals in the first half, and we were leading 2-0, and then obviously crashed back down to earth, and they pumped 4 past us and battered us. And obviously after that, it was COVID hit, and it allowed us to really look at what we had working for us. Salamakers was able to work on his role as the right midfielder, and players like Rebic came into their own and played as a left midfielder, and slowly things adapted into the 4-2-3-1 formation we see today. And there's a lot of, I love that formation. I've always played it when I played games like FIFA or Pro Evolution Soccer or Football Manager. I do love that formation, and I do want us to really shy away from not using it, but I understand that if you don't have certain personnel available, and we haven't signed players that, match that position completely with a lot of depth, we have to consider alternatives, and especially if we have strong strikers like Giroud and Zlatan Ibrahimovic up top. And that's really the point we're looking at this situation right now that we have to consider potentially changing formation in certain scenarios. I don't think this is a complete overhaul to say this is going to be our go-to formation. That's not necessarily the case. I think in football you have to have a range of methods, especially as a coach. You need to have options against certain oppositions. If you find yourself losing in a game where the team you're playing against is very defensive, a lower league table side, we need to have an option that we can call upon that is basically sort of either like gun-ho and make the most out of it. And it's not so much that, you could do it on a whim, on a night, but you need to practice that formation. You need to make sure things tick. That way you're not sort of just like banking on it, hoping to work. And I've seen it in the past. I've seen this formation play out. Coaches like Mihajlovic played the 4-4-2 formation. it was a lot with a lot more rigid players. It was players like Mbai Niang and Juraj Kuchka, like the players like they couldn't really adapt into different positions in this formation. What we have here today is a much more fluid team. Even like players like Theo Hernandez, he's not scared to bomb into the middle of the park and eventually actually kind of get into attacking positions. Alexis Salamakers finds himself manoeuvring himself out, across the midfield and getting into those, final third positions. Benacer, he's someone who likes to dribble forward with the ball. It's good because these days we have players who are a bit more adaptable, and we need to adapt as a team. We're not going to find ourselves playing against the same team week in, week out. And we are the first people to criticise Pioli for not having a plan B. So I'm actually happy he is considering alternatives and using the pre-season to his opportunity to test these alternatives. So who are the real players that are going to really benefit from this formation change if it is to happen? The first one that comes to mind is the one that we all sort of talk about when we see a 4-4-2 and getting someone that can play close to a spearhead striker is Rafael Leao. Rafael Leao, we've spoken about numerous amount of times about wanting to see more from him. I do really hope this is the year for him, and I'm going to end it there with that one. But I think we've seen it before. We talk about that Cagliari game where he scored in that game when Pioli first tested this 4-4-2 formation back out in early 2020. He's very good when he works very closely with the centre forward, and I don't think that matters if it's Ibra or Giroud. This is a great chance to get him utilising his potential as a supporting striker. And even if that's not the case, and we were to play like a front two of Giroud and Ibra, or Brahim Diaz next to Ibra or Giroud, you can play Rafael Leao as a left winger. And I feel like as time's gone on, he wants to drift out into that left wing position. So he has the option of two positions in this formation. So I think he's the one that's going to benefit the most from it. Other than that, we can look at players like Alexis Salamakers, who numerous amount of times people complain he's not a traditional right winger. I know that. We didn't sign him as one. We signed him as a right midfielder who can adapt and even play like right back sometimes if we were required to, or like a right wing back position. Playing him in his natural role as a right midfielder, where he's able to give us defensive and offensive duties throughout 90 minutes, is perfect for someone like him. We're close to signing players like Florenzi, who is also someone who has played in that right midfield position, so he's someone as well who can benefit from this. Another one that springs to mind as well is something that not a lot of people consider, is Theo Hernandez. And Theo is someone who, if you look at our normal formation, the 4-2-3-1, there's a lot of clutter in the middle of the park because we don't really have traditional wingers, so to space out the field. And when Theo goes for a run, bless it, sometimes, Rebic can keep himself wide and there's that 1-2 and it springs him through the middle. But half the time there is a lot of clutter in the midfield because we have players playing in the sort of the attacking midfield position. If we remove those players and space the field out a bit more wide, he has more space to utilise with those 1-2s and get himself into dangerous positions, connect more with the supporting striker, with the centre forward. He's someone I feel like, and his stats will go through the roof, take-ons and dribbles past certain midfielders and really testing the opposition centre-backs in those certain styles of play. Other than that, really, I think Brahim Diaz, that he's someone as well who can benefit from this change of formation. Reason I say that is getting him close to a centre forward, allowing him that sort of freedom role, but I can't really see much difference between this formation and also the other formation we apply, which is the 4-2-3-1, because both allows him that sort of freedom role to dribble at players. So I feel like, it's much of the same for him. Other than that, really, it keeps the midfield intact. Benacer, Kessie, Tonali, they're all going to get their opportunities and chances, not really get dropped. And, dare I say it, even the scenario that we have to we can't find a buyer for Samuel Castillejo, at least it's a position where we're not really going to be demanding too much from him because, it takes a lot more pressure off the wingers and allows the team as a whole to generate more opportunities. So, there's stuff like that. And we spoke about it before. I'm not in favour with this, but playing Giroud and Ibra up top, it's an option. I want to see this potentially late on into the game. If we're losing or if we're drawing, it allows Ibra to maybe drop off more. He likes to do it in certain games if things aren't quite clicking and ticking. So he likes to drop off, get himself a bit more involved with the midfield, and then Giroud can stay up top as a sort of spearhead striker. Vice versa, or we can go for long balls. Ibra knocks him down, vice versa with Giroud. Both of them are very big players, very good in the air. And then we can just, bounce off the knockdowns, the midfielders, the wingers, or the other striker who hasn't gotten it. So there's a lot of players who can benefit from this change of formation. So wrapping things up, I'm going to give you my thoughts on the 4-4-2 formation. I personally, I'm going to be honest, I don't really like it. Like I said, I love the 4-2-3-1, but I understand we need a plan B. I understand there isn't depth in certain positions like the right winger and the attacking midfield position currently until the market ends. We don't know what quite we're working with. So I understand the necessity to potentially change formation if we just don't have the personnel there. You never know what's going to happen with injuries. But at the same time, you can argue the case that if we play a 4-4-2 and we play Ibra and Giroud up top, who's the striker coming off the bench? So it's all kind of really swings and roundabouts if you want to look at the depth option as the reasoning for changing things. I understand it has to be used in pre-season because currently we don't have that depth right now. So, Pioli has to field a side to play against another side and also try some different things if they see and if they're working. The only cases I really want to see this happen from a get-go standard is if we're chasing a game. We mentioned it before. If we're losing, we're playing against a team that's very deep defensively. We saw it quite a lot of times last season where we get like 3/4 of the way up the pitch and we're just so close to getting the ball into the goal. But sometimes we need to play very ugly to get that goal to win that game. There were a lot of unnecessary draws last season that can come from defensive mistakes, which I'm sure that will get corrected this season. But at the same time, it can always happen. What we can do is create our own luck up top, and that comes to sort of playing a bit ugly. Long balls if we can. The two big guys up top, they're going to be our highest paid players, Giroud and Ibra. So why not utilise them, their experience, what they add to the pitch? They scare a lot of centre-backs with their physicality and with their height. So, if we're chasing a game, I'd like to see this thing played. It keeps the opposition guessing. It gives us a plan B, makes us less predictable. I understand the reasonings for that. But yeah, other than that, really, I don't really want to see this applied, say, as from the first minute of a game, unless we really think we're going to batter the opponents. But personally, I'm not so sure about it. But I don't know. To be honest, it's not my choice. It's Stefano Pioli's choice. It's the other Stefano's choice. But anyway, guys, let's talk about it in the comment section. Do you guys love the 4-4-2 formation? Do you dislike it? Do you think it's okay, a decent option to go upon? Would you prefer a formation more like the 3-5-2 or a back three formation? Is there any sort of other formation you can think of that you like and you prefer us to sort of do? Just leave in the comment section below. But until next time, guys, hopefully a few more signings. I think that last week of the window is very crucial. I know that people don't like it, but that's how the transfer window works for certain clubs like us who are on a sort of a bit of a budget. So I'm hoping more signings we can talk about in the coming weeks. But until next time, guys, Forza Milan.